Israel Straight Talk. I'm your host, Avi Abelo. Today we're going to deal with the claim of the Arabs who like to say, Jews, leave the land of Israel, leave Palestine, it's not your homeland, go back to Europe, go back to America. And the person who really brought this to the fore so succinctly just about a half a year ago was Helen Thomas, the famed journalist of the White House forever, until she said this comment. And she said it exactly like that, right into the video camera. Jews, leave Palestine, go back to Poland, go back to Germany. Now, I want to tackle this issue from a different direction, from the Arab direction. Jews lived in Middle Eastern countries for over 2,500 years. Egypt, Tunisia, Iraq, Morocco, Libya. The Jewish history in these countries, each is a little different, starting at a little different place, but some of these countries goes back 2,500 years. Now, we already dealt with videos dealing with the human rights abuses in Arab countries in the Middle East, and how there is no freedom of religion or freedom of worship except you go according to the ruling Muslim affiliation of the government, of the ruler. Now understand, 1947, the United Nations is dealing with the debate on the partition plan to partition British mandate of Palestine, called Palestine after the Romans called the land of Israel Palestina. And listen to what the Arab leaders were saying in the UN at that time. They very succinctly threatened the Jews living in their countries with violence if the partition plan would be approved. And I'm going to bring you a quote. The Egyptian delegate Haikal Pasha to the United Nations in 1947 in the debate on the partition plan said, quote, "The lives of 1 million Jews in Muslim countries would be jeopardized by partition. If the United Nations decides to partition Palestine, it might be responsible for grave disorders and for the massacre of large number of Jews." This is a quote said in the United Nations to the leaders of the world. Did the world say anything about it? Did the world decide to institute a resolution to bomb the Arab countries because of the violence they were about to inflict upon their Jewish populations? No. Not only that, it happened. The partition plan was decided upon and it passed, and the Arab countries then placed much disorder, much harm, both physical and economical harm on the Jews living in those countries. Jews were massacred in the streets, synagogues were burned, Jewish stores were burned, people's possessions were taken, and you had a mass exodus of around 870,000 Jews from the Arab countries, Iraq, Iran, Tunisia, Egypt, Morocco, because it was not safe for them to live in the Arab countries anymore. So now, you Arabs in the world, and you peace-loving people who want there to be peace in the Middle East, and tell us that the only way peace will happen is if the Jews leave and go back to their homes in Poland and Germany. Well, what about the Jews who lived for close to 2,000 years in the Arab countries? They don't want the Jews, and that's not their homeland, and they don't want to go back to Iraq, and they don't want to go back to Syria, and Iraq doesn't want them, and Syria doesn't want them, but that was their homeland before Israel. And the whole world knows the land of the Jewish people is the land of Israel. It's not that they don't want us. They don't believe that this is our homeland. Everyone knows it. All the Muslims know in the Koran it says that the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. The battle today is not whether or not the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. The battle is whether they want to allow the Jewish people to live in their homeland. And all Jews should go home. This is our homeland, and this is where we belong. For all these millennia, we've been in the diaspora, living in the Arab countries until they expelled us in 1947 and the years afterwards. We did live in Europe, in Germany, in Poland. When Europe didn't want the Jews anymore and killed 6 million of us, we moved to America and to Canada and to Australia and New Zealand. Jews live everywhere in the world, and we adapt to all the cultures. But every Jewish soul is yearning to come home, and that home is the land of Israel. So don't let anyone say the claim, Jews leave Palestine, go home, because the Jews are home in Palestine, because Palestine is the land of Israel. Thanks for joining us today at Israel Straight Talk. Looking forward to next time. Any comments or questions, please write them on our Facebook wall, facebook.com/Israel Straight Talk, and help us make the world